All right, and we're live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another broadcast of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. We're kicking off our 2023 season. I'm joined tonight by Mr. Shane Honey. Shane is going to start uh, being helping be our co-host along the line for the next shows. Just to let everybody know that Blake is not leaving Northwest Georgia Cryptics. Blake is still with us. As a matter of fact, I sent Blake out a invitation to join us a few minutes ago. But Blake will be joining us again in the future. Uh, but I'd like to introduce everybody. This is Mr. Shane Honey. Shane has had an encounter back in what year was that, Shane?
Oh man, that's way back in November 1991. Long time ago.
1991.
Yes, sir.
Uh, you want to go ahead and kindly explain to the folks what took place and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Well, back when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I watched the movie, the classic movie that everybody likes. It's in the Bigfoot community and stuff, The Legend of Boggy Creek, and loved the movie and was, interested in Sasquatch, you know, at that time. And I read some books and stuff, what was at my school library and such. And all, but kind of over the years, you kind of grow up and kind of get away from things, and was a teenager and was doing a lot of hunting in general, mainly coon hunting, as you well know, Rick. But like I said, it was in November 1991, and the gentleman that I hunted with, um, he lived in New Georgia, and he had 3,000 acres of land leased in Barrow County. And about every Saturday night that we'd go down there and run dogs and stuff. But like I said, I don't remember the exact date, but it was in November '91, and we got down there to that land in Barrow County, and of course it was gated off, and my buddy Hubert had keys and all to get into these different areas there on the hunting property. Well, we got down there. We parked close to a big old creek that was down there. That was the normal place where we would turn dogs loose out of the box and walk in into the woods and stuff there. So we got all our gear and stuff on, our coon hunting lights and all, and had a gentleman. His name was Ray. It's been so long ago that I don't recall Ray's last name. I wouldn't say it anyway, in case he wouldn't want it to be said. But he lived on that property, and he was kind of like the overseer of the property, and he would go run dogs with us most Saturday nights, not all the time, but most of the time. But he was with us that night. So got our gear on, turned dogs loose, and this particular area we had turned loose so much in there, walked through them woods that we had a trail. About at times that three people side by side could walk down that trail. But we turned loose around 7:30 ish, I think it was. It's about a normal time, and the dogs was out hunting and trying to strike up a trail and all. And we started hearing this movement, a little ways behind us, in the brush and such. And my buddy Hubert that I hunted with, he thought it might have been one of the dogs coming back. But Rick, as you know, being an old coon hunter, when you have these dogs, you know the individual voices of each dog that you've got. And that particular bark that them dogs are doing, you can tell what they're doing by them barks, because they're pretty much telling you what they're doing. Well, at that time, them dogs had already struck up and were running. And I told Hubert couldn't hear real good. So back then we didn't use GPS collars. We kind of kept the dogs in hearing distance. And so I was Hubert's ears. And I was like, Hubert, no, that's not one of the dogs. I said I can hear that them dogs, and every dog that we had that night, they were trailing. And so we, move on a little bit, keeping the dogs in hearing distance and stuff, and kept hearing something behind us, And Hubert was like, I wonder if that's an old hog or something. I was like, well, I don't know, and kept on moving a little bit more. And about, I don't recall exactly how long it was, but the dogs, best I can remember, the dogs had treed about that time. Okay. And we had walked long ways into these woods, back in November, night it's dark, especially when you're in the woods, it's dark, dark. And so the way we would hunt, we walk a little ways, keep the dog in hearing distance, turn the lights off and listen. Like I said, about this time, them dogs is already treed, uh, and kept hearing that something behind us. And Hubert's like, he said, I don't know what that is. And he had jokingly said, like, Hubert carried a little 22 rifle with us. We hardly knocked any coons out on we just didn't hardly ever do that, but he always had it anyway. And um, Hubert told us by this time we
Just
had
want to
turned
say hi to
around.
everybody.
We had turned around and we sitting there, listening to whatever that was behind us. And at this time, that big old creek is no longer on the right; it's on the left. And on the right, you know, uh, there was a trail. We were on the trail, but the ground kind of was kind of flat, and then it was a big old hill. So that hill would have been on the right at this time. Hubert jokingly said, he goes, boys, he goes, if I don't, like what I see, he wanted us to turn our lights on, at count of three. Sounds kind of corny, but that's the way it was. He was jokingly saying, boys, if I don't like what I see, I'm going to start shooting. He said, all right. He said, and told me and Ray, he said, I count to three. Y'all flip them lights on, and shine it down there. We'll try to see what that was. And well, back then in them days, we didn't have all these fancy LED lights and stuff. They're super strong. So what we used is a 6-volt nightlight battery with a 4-volt wheat light head. And nightlight still sells them today like that, called a hot light. They're super bright. So all three of us had those type of lights. And so Hewitt said, all right, boys, one, two, three, pretty much. And we flipped them lights on, and down that trail, probably, we guesstimated later that, well, actually, Hubert did it. He thought it was about 30 yards away. Was this hairy being, creature, what do you want to call it? It was kind of crouched down, and the darn thing stood up. And I personally never saw the face of this thing, and honestly, I'm pretty glad that I didn't. After hearing some descriptions of how they look in the face by other witnesses and stuff, I don't believe I want to see the face, but this thing, it was covered in hair, and we estimated later that it was between 7 and 7.5 foot tall. But I remember the seemed like the hair on its arm was longer, a little bit longer than the hair that was on the rest of its body. Um, and I can remember the head. It wasn't conical like a lot of witnesses report. It was only slightly conical. It was more rounded than conical, but its head and stuff was covered in hair. But what I was so concentrated on and focused on was like its shoulders. All this is on a side view now. So I myself was more focused on the shoulders and the torso and the thigh area. That's what I seen the most of, and that's what I remember concentrating on because this darn thing was so thick. Just looking at it from a side profile, it was a really thick being, creature, what do you want to call them, um, but when our lights hit that thing, now this encounter just took place in a few seconds, the actual sighting of it. But that sucker stood up, and like I said, that trail in places where it's wide enough for three grown men to walk shoulder to shoulder down it, and you're not going to be stepping all in the woods and brush and stuff like that. That thing took one step across that trail, and it was in the woods on the other side, and it took off running, and it went running up that hill, and it was breaking branches and stuff as it was going. Now it never vocalized, it never made any type of vocalization at all, but we heard that sucker go up that hill and down the hill on the other side, And then, little bit later, I guess it started, after a little while getting out of hearing distance. And so we quit hearing it running, but it was definitely bipedal. It was running on two legs. But it just got out of hearing. And like I said, our dogs were treating. And Hubert didn't fire a shot. And I've told you this before, Rick. Hubert was a tough man. At that time, I would think he was in his mid-50s, and I was a teenager. I was in high school, but Hubert had been in the Marine Corps and just been through all kind of stuff, and he was a real tough man. But things didn't rattle him, but that scared him. It scared all three of us. Um, but we got them dogs. We went and got them dogs and leased them up, and we took them back to the truck, put them in the dog box, got our gear on, and we left. And we didn't hunt the following Saturday. We didn't hunt. Hubert didn't want to go hunting, but the Saturday after that, we went and run dogs. Now down on that property, there wasn't hardly anything out there. It was woods and pastures. They had some cows in the pastures and stuff, but the houses were few and far between down there. And there's times that we heard strange vocalizations down there. And there was a one event that Hubert told me about. This was after we had our sighting, that him and his son had a small pull behind trailer down there, kind of close to the creek, where him and his son would go down there sometime and go deer hunting. And one time I was down there. Of course, I wasn't with them, but Hubert told me, related this story to me, and I knew Hubert really well, and he wasn't the type of fellow that's going to crappy about something. He's going to tell you straight up the truth. So he told it to me, and I have no reason to doubt him. But he said they were big human-like footprints that walked all around that camper, and he said he thought that whatever it was looking in on it, looking in, not on him, but inside the camper, kind of wondering what it was all about and such. But from time to time, we hunt down there and running dogs. We would have rocks thrown at us, hear vocalizations and stuff. I don't ever remember hearing any tree knocks or any whoops. It was more like screams and yells and such that we heard from time to time. And there was a few times down there that we run into some odor. Good gracious, alive, buddy! It's worse than any skunk I ever smelled. And and sometimes people will report uh, smell and odor, with these creatures at times, and I don't know if it's like a scent gland or what it is, because some people will report it, some don't, but we had run into them odors. Like, I can remember about twice down there that I can think of now, because like, hey, that's been over 30 years ago. But we never saw anything. I never saw anything else except for that night. But there's a lot of strange things, sounds and stuff in them woods, and and I know that wasn't no daggone bear. There wasn't no bears down there anyway in Barrow County at that time. And it sure wasn't a person in a suit, because the way this thing was built and proportioned and stuff, there ain't no way somebody could be in a suit like that. There's just no way. So I right after this happened, this sighting, like I said, it wasn't a long one. It was a pretty short, just a few seconds long. But I knew then from being interested in Bigfoot, Sasquatch when I was a kid. I knew what it was. I wasn't no doubt in my mind what it was. And Hubert and Ray both said, that's what they knew it was too. That's what they thought it was. But like I said, it's not a big.
Okay, well, now,
Go.
let me ask you this, Shane. Uh, the area that y'all were hunting there,
Mhm.
before the night of your sighting, uh, had y'all had any conflicts with anything out of the ordinary uh, before the night that you actually saw this creature?
Yeah, there was a time that I know before that there's a little rocks being thrown, and we kind of thought, just kind of, wrote it off and maybe it's acorns or something, but I'm pretty sure it's little pebbles being thrown at us. Now Hubert did tell me that a couple years before that, that one of his dogs had come back to him, and she was all it's a female, red bone, and she was all kind of like clawed up and looked like she'd been just slung around and stuff, and he you know he didn't know what had done it, and I can't say a Sasquatch done that to that dog, but I mean it could have possibly been. But that property down there, it was full of deer. It's full of coyotes and bobcats and of course raccoons and possums and such. And I never seen any wild hogs or any sign of wild hogs. That's not saying there wasn't any down there. Since I, all the years I hunted down there, I never experienced any wild hogs. Plus, there was cattle there, water stores, food sources and stuff, a good cover. So it was, I guess you'd say, like a lot of people say now, it was a squatchy piece of property. And so I
Right.
have no, it's something they could be living down there at that time, and pretty much not even be messed with by anybody.
That's you're talking about this sighting being a short sighting. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
most people that have encountered these creatures over the years, this is basically what they report.
Yeah.
Just having a minimal sighting of these creatures.
Yes.
These things I know back in '84 when I saw the one face to face encounter that I had one while we were fishing the creek. This thing was probably, I don't know, 25, 30 feet from us when we came around the curve to the right in that creek, and this thing
Mm-hmm.
was standing off to the left. And when I first saw it, I thought it was a bear, but this thing was crouched over like a man crouching over, and had its
Yeah.
hands down in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first thing that I actually, folks, the first thing I actually noticed. I know I've told this before the show, but when its hands come up out of the water, what I was expecting to be bear paws wasn't bear paws at all. It was
Yeah.
two hands, two human hands like ours,
Yeah.
except about twice, three times the size of mine. But that was the first thing I really noticed about the creature. And then when it stood and threw its head back and winded the air, uh, I could tell I could kindly make out the facial features on it. We were going, you have to realize, we were going pretty fast in the raft when we come around the curve and saw the thing. But when it stood, it threw its head back, it winded us, it turned, and as I've always said, the wood yard was about 30 yards or maybe 40 yards behind it. And this
Mm-hmm.
thing cleared the wood. This thing went off of that. It was like a big sandbar that ran out into to the main part of Talking Rock Creek, where the
Mm-hmm.
mouth of Little Scarecorn run in at. This thing turned, and it covered the distance between where it was and the tree line in maybe 3 to 4 long strides, and it was gone.
Yeah.
Fastest thing I've ever seen move in my life. I've never seen nothing. This thing was probably, I'm going to say, a juvenile, maybe 6.5 feet tall, and this thing,
Mm-hmm.
or 5.5 to 6 foot tall. This thing cleared the wood line was in the woods within, like you said, maybe 5 seconds the most. And
Yeah.
uh, but it too never gave out a yell, nothing like that. Nothing,
Mm-hmm.
that it was alarmed, like it was alarmed about it seeing us. Uh, but one thing that I did notice when we finally got the raft over to the left hand side of the creek, and I could get out and walk back up to the spot where this thing was standing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this was a hard graveled sandbar,
Mm-hmm.
uh, covered in this, regular creek rock. And where this thing was standing, I could, you would have figured something as heavy as this thing was, because I'm gonna say it was in probably 350 pound range, something in that neighborhood. But
Mm-hmm.
there was no marred down or print evidence where this thing had been standing, other than
Mm-hmm.
it looked like they might have been indentions where maybe it had raised up on its toes when it saw us. There was a little indention there,
Mm-hmm.
but small clams that you see in the creek beds, half tall, where this thing had been eating those, getting those out of the creek there and eating them, and just
Yeah.
piling the shells up. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the first thing you know that it was wild, because if I had walked up without seeing the creature and saw a pile of those shells like that, I would have thought maybe a raccoon or something had been there eating this. But it
Yeah.
was no raccoon. It was no bear. This thing was whatever it was, and I still say to this day it was a Sasquatch that I saw. Um,
Mm.
but we've had plenty of encounters. Blake and I have over the years with these things, and I'm hoping Blake will be on our next show to tell us some of the stuff that's actually happened over the years. Uh,
Oh yeah.
well, let me ask you this, Shane. I know you said that you had actually saw saw these things on the moment that you saw that one that night. Did you actually believe in these creatures?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's other than the little sighting that I had and have run across, different things. I found a couple footprints in areas in the past where uh, these beings are known to kind of hang out and be around, like around Fort Mountain area. We found some large footprints up there, but just by listening to other people's encounters and such, and you take into account like all the North American Native American tribes, they've got in some way or another, they've got stories and tales and such about creatures like this, and you've got too, the Viking, the Norseman, Leif Erikson came, to America, and he even had talked about seeing large, hairy type men, and you got the story that Teddy Roosevelt had related, about the hunters and stuff, and encountering one, and was it Daniel Boone, David Crockett? It might have been David Crockett. I'm not really, I don't really recall, but one of them had shot what they call a Yahoo, in some areas of America,
Right. Now that was that. That's actually in written. That's actually in written account. It was Daniel Boone that actually
Daniel.
had the
Mm,
encounter and actually killed one of these creatures.
yes.
Um, uh, Going off the deep end here.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Let me ask you this, and I know you, as I have heard, and other people related having experiences with these creatures. What do you feel? How do you feel about mind speak? What people talk about mind speak?
Yeah, I have. I have no doubt that people has experienced, mind speak. Personally, I've never experienced anything like that, but there's too many witnesses and stuff that has experienced mind speak, in different forms and such, of witnesses that I've heard. So I can't really speak on it in a really educated type manner, other than I'll say this um, that I don't doubt that a lot of these witnesses, are talking about having, mind speak type things going on with them with some of these encounters. I believe, it's a possibility. I don't think all these people would be lying about something like that, going on with them. Um, this is kind of the way my mindset is with Sasquatch. I don't know what they are. I have no clue, but just about anything's possibility with these beings. Because we just, as a whole, we just don't know that much about them. So yeah, I believe it's a possibility. I'm not going to discount that. Just because I haven't experienced that doesn't mean that others, uh, haven't had those experiences. But yeah, I believe it's possible.
All right. Like myself, I've been doing this investigation since uh, I saw my first one in '84. I've been every time I've been in the woods, I've always looked for different oddities, things out of the ordinary that really shouldn't be there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I really didn't get really heavy into doing the investigation end of this until uh, probably 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And then Blake and I started having those encounters with the creatures down at the lake, where Blake actually, as I told you, had actually saw a family of three of them, a male, a female, and a small
Mm-hmm.
juvenile. Um, but these creatures have over the years have amazed me in some of the things that I've seen them do, or some of the structures that I've actually uh, came upon that these creatures have built 4 and 5, 6, 8 mile back in the wilderness, away from any main roads, away from anywhere anybody would be. And you come up
Yeah.
on these stick structures, the X's. We were on a camp out a couple of years ago over on Pigeon Mountain over at Lafayette, and we actually had a spot on top and up there where when you went into the woods up about 150, 200 yards off the main road, there was a big X symbol. Well, two
Mm-hmm.
trees had been crossed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I turned and went to the right of this and walked out about, I don't know, probably a quarter of a mile and encountered another one. Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
turned and went to the back end of this big ridge, probably another 600, 800 yards, and there was another X structure. So this
Mm-hmm.
thing, whatever this thing was that had marked this area, it had marked it on four corners with
Uh-huh.
these X's. And whether this is actually whether it was a hunting area for them, whether it was something a sacred area to them, whatever, I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
this is just something that we had encountered doing our research. Uh, we that same night we had actually caught it looked like three of them on thermal, about 50 yards across the road from where we were camped at. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Wind was blowing hard that night, but there were sticks being thrown into the camp where we were at, rocks being thrown into the camp. So, you can
Yeah.
just figure by that, uh, and by the thermal imaging that we actually got that night, that these creatures were very curious in there. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something, folks, that these creatures are very, very curious creatures. Uh,
Oh,
when we go into the woods, if there's a Sasquatch in the area, he's going to know that you're there. I
oh
mean,
yeah.
you don't have to go out and go beating on trees and screaming, yelling to get these things' attention, because my belief is that once you pull into the woods, you get out of your vehicle and you enter that wood line. Though if there's a creature anywhere around, he's going to know that you're there. It's just like
Oh yeah.
somebody opening the front door and walking in your house, Shane. You're going to know when they open that door and come into your house. Well, these
Absolutely.
creatures are the same way.
Yeah. Uh, I truly believe that they know you're there way before you even know that they are. And a lot of times you never even know they're there. You don't see them, you don't hear them. And one thing that's kind of I've thought about was about that the odor is sometimes reported in encounters and sometimes not, and such. With you and your research and stuff, of course, you've been doing it for a long time. What do you think about this odor stuff? I've heard some theories that that it might be like a scent gland that they have that they could give off if they're maybe mad or excited, or maybe they give it off as a warning or something. What are your thoughts on that, Rick?
Okay, as far as the scent is concerned, we encountered that the first time that I've ever encountered it was down at Altoona Lake, and this was along in the late part of 2011, early part of 2012. Uh, it was probably, I'd say, earlier part of 2012, because I'd say it was in probably, I'm going to say, early March.
Mm-hmm.
Weather had already started turning a little warm. I
Mm-hmm.
remember the day that we went, that particular day that we went down there. Michael Hill, my roommate, Blake Duckworth, hunting partner, my nephew Kenny, and there was a couple other guys with us. But we'd gotten down there early that morning, got out, and we were surveilling the area that particular day for any tree structures or footprints or anything we could find. And we had walked around uh, from where the camping area is at in the graveyard. Now we'd walked through the cemetery, down on the backside next to the lake, turned to the right, walked all the way around this cove it came in, and just as we got to the far side of the cove and started into the wood line, there was a little hill there that we started up. And man, I smelled one of the worst smells I've ever smelled in my life. It smelled like rotten dog, dead dog, wet dog, pee, I don't know, sulfur,
Mm-hmm.
rotten egg, all and LP gas mixed together with all this is about what it smelled like.
Yeah.
But this scent continued on for maybe 45 minutes, I'd say, that we
Mm-hmm.
actually smelt this thing. And at a couple of times, a couple of periods during that time, it actually gotten so strong that it uh, would cause your eyes to water.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, as far as what causes these creatures to uh, put off a scent like this, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be scent gland, whether it be just who knows, it could be a defense mechanism that these creatures
Yeah.
have
Mm-hmm.
to ward off, any type of predators or whatever. But then
Mm-hmm.
again, you go back, these creatures are reported to be 8, 9, 10 foot tall. So really, something that big, I don't know if they need a defense mechanism to help ward off predators, because really, there's no predator out there that would be really a match to one of these creatures.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. They're the big dogs, the big man, the apex predator, I guess you'd say, out there, because there's nothing that's going to that's going to hunt them other than man. And if you're trying to hunt one of them, yeah, I think you making a big mistake. There. When I say hunting one, I mean pursuing it. To kill. Now, um, I know there's been ones that's been shot. In killed, and I'm pretty positive that there's been some captured and things like that. But yeah, I think you in for a bad time. Yeah, out there in the woods, you're trying to kill one of these things. You know, unless it was like a self defense type thing. I think it's just a you open up a can that you're not going to be able to control. Because I think shooting one of these things, for one, it's just going to tick it off. And I think seriously that they're probably living like family groups, and I truly believe that where one is, others are not that far apart. Not that far away. I should say. I don't think they're the others will be too far away from each other. But you know, some people are pro kill for Sasquatch, and some of them are not. And I don't care if personally about proving that they exist. I mean, I know they do. Had the sighting and all this other stuff, and listening to witness testimony and stuff, and I know they're real. I just want to learn about them and stuff. What you can learn, and to me personally, just listening to witness firsthand encounters and stuff. You can learn a lot by listening to people's encounters and put two and two together and putting three and three together. You can kind of come up with some I guess you'd say some information about how they hunt, how they do this, how they do that, and all. But somebody kills one and is able to bring it to the public light, I guess you'd say, in the news media and stuff. That's fine. But like I said, I know a lot of people don't want one killed, and I know a lot of people think they're your little like I've told you before. Some folks think they're little the forest friendly forest giants gonna hold hands with you sitting by a campfire and sing kumbaya. No, they're not. Even though the one that we had a sighting of made no type of aggressive movements or anything towards us. But I've heard too many encounters and such that to people that I truly believe that's had some bad experiences with these things that they're not your little buddies. They're just not. And I believe, like I've spoke to you before in depth about, I think they have their own attitudes and stuff like people. No, I'm not saying that they are people. I'm not saying that, but like human beings, some people are laid back, some people more high strung, some people, are real friendly, and some people just buttholes, to put it, uh, bluntly. And I think these things are no different. And but two, with them, I truly believe that they can turn on a dime. So you don't know what's going to set them off, what's going to make them mad, what they don't like. And so as a whole, dealing with these things, which I haven't had. I'll be honest, I haven't had that much experience. With stuff like that. Unlike you've had a lot of encounters and close encounters and stuff with them that you've told me before. But make a long story short, they're not made to be messed with, to be ticked off or nothing, because I believe you could have a bad day real quick with them, And there's something, 7, 8, 9 foot tall, weighs 800,000 pounds, and that's something that you just don't want to mess with, because it could pop your head like a zit just as easy as we're sitting here talking, you know. Um,
That's exactly it. And you know, even with all the things that I've encountered over the years for these things, I have never had a really aggressive encounter with these things, other than the one that I had back in the late '80s up on Big Frog Mountain. We had we had a dog end up that got killed up there
Mhm.
one night on a camp out. Uh, and now whether it was killed by a bear, whether it was killed by Sasquatch, I don't know for sure. I can't
Mhm.
say for sure. I do know that I buried the dog there on the side of the mountain. I went back a week later. I had actually taken stones this big and stacked on this dog's grave. And
Mhm.
I went back a week, 2 weeks later, and all these stones had been removed, and the dog's carcass had been removed from the grave that
Mhm.
where we placed it. And
Yeah.
you know, whether something actually what is actually a Sasquatch to kill the dog? I don't know. I
Mhm.
cannot say that for sure. I won't say it for sure. But from what we encountered that night, I'd say 80%. If I had to actually guess, I'd say that it was a Sasquatch. But
Mhm.
you know, as a whole, we don't know what actually triggers these things. We don't know
Yeah.
what kind of mood they're in. We don't know uh, what actually sets these things off. Uh, you know, you could walk up on one and stand there and have a all day visual with it, and it never show any aggression at all. But then
Yeah.
you actually walk up on one and maybe call for something, and that thing get pissed off and tear your head off. So
Yeah.
we never know.
Mhm.
Um, Chuck had wrote here. One of the guests watching tonight had wrote it is going to have to one's going to have to be killed for science to recognize them. Well, this is
Mhm.
true. I'd say to an
Yeah.
extent, but I go back to reiterate: we are a no kill group. We do not believe whatsoever of going out and killing one just to put it on a slab where they can dissect it and say, oh, yeah, they're real. I mean, these
Yeah.
creatures have been around for thousands of years. Uh, and as you said, Indian lore has it that these creatures were they held them in high esteem. Uh,
Yeah.
Even my grandfather, Alf Painter, Alf was full blooded Cherokee. And, you know, uh, where he was from in North Carolina, uh, they too believed in the Sasquatch. They believed these creatures existed, but they believed that they were watchers of the woods, watchers of the mountains, uh, and they revered these creatures. Weren't frightened of them. They revered these creatures. They thought that they were part of what God had actually put here on this earth to protect the forest.
Mhm.
And a lot of the Indian tribes from out west, whatever, believed this. Now, there were a couple of them, I think the Lakotas, that felt that these creatures were a menace. They
Mm.
uh, were blamed, about coming in, raiding camps, and stealing children, whatever.
Mhm.
And who's to say, that they didn't? Who's to say?
Yeah.
But then that's to go back to what you said earlier about these creatures. Uh, you know, Number one, we do not know what. First of all, we don't know really what these creatures are. We do not
Mm.
know for sure whether they're part man or they're. Let me see what he. Yeah, Chuck wrote, I would not kill one, but if someone did, we could get some protection for their habitat. Well, Chuck, I go back to the feeling on that. I feel that the government knows these creatures exist.
Mhm.
They've known that they've existed for years and years, um, but because of all of the lost revenue by admitting that these creatures do exist, they're never going to admit it. You know, I don't care if somebody drove up down here at Walmart with one in the bed of the truck. Uh, I still do not believe that the government or modern day science would recognize it as even being uh, something that could live in our forest because of the fact that could you imagine uh, the revenue that would be lost if the government stood up, someone from the government stood up and said, yes, there are 10-foot creatures out here running around in the forest. Uh, you know, you're going to have to use your own discretion to go into the forest. These creatures could eat you while you're out there. Eat your family members, whatever. Uh, could you imagine? I mean, lost revenue from timber production, lost revenue from hunting, lost revenue from camping, from just being in nature whatsoever, people getting out and enjoy it. Because if people knew for sure that these creatures are out there, do you think they would take their kids to the woods uh, to have any type family functions? I don't. Uh,
Mm-mm.
so can you imagine, just what lost revenue each town across the United States would have if they knew for sure that these creatures were there?
Yeah. My opinion, of course, like this is just my opinion. I don't, these things has been around forever today. I don't think that they really need protection. Land set aside for them or whatnot. That's just my opinion. But they've been around and I think they do pretty good taking care of themselves. And I'm just of the opinion that I don't think that they would need acreage setback, and it's like this is Sasquatch land, and this is where they live, and leave them alone. I just don't think they really need protecting. If somebody others think otherwise, that's fine. Like I said, this is just my opinion. It's just they've just been around for so long, and they do what they want to do. Whether man is involved in it or not. They're like a wild being. Been taking care of themselves for thousands of years without mankind intervening. What's the difference now? But I realize that a lot of habitat in forest land has been encroached upon by man and such, and I think that's one reason. Rick, me and you spoke about this not long ago. Uh, I think that's one reason why there's been so much more encounters in these years of
Oh,
Sasquatch
most
what it
definitely,
was years ago.
definitely. I mean, yeah, had not only just this, not only just right here in Gordon County, for instance. I've lived here in Gordon County off and on for the past 40 years. And I can tell you straight up that uh, now we are seeing deer herds increase by many folds uh, that we're actually seeing coming out onto the highways, coming out into people's yards, whatever, and it's because of new construction, new subdivisions going in. But we're seeing these creatures on a daily basis. You're seeing bear, you're seeing more coons, you're seeing
Mm,
more fox, uh, anything and everything because of their habitat being destroyed. So,
yeah,
yeah, I could see I could show I do believe that what man can actually do as far as uh, building and encroaching into these areas. Uh,
hmm
I know we as a species have to have places to live or whatever, but I don't think we have to destroy the habitat that these creatures have lived in for thousands of years uh,
absolutely,
in order for us to have a place to live ourselves.
absolutely. but that too goes back, with that kind of stuff going on. That goes back to people having more sightings, and more so than what it was, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and such. So just such an increase in sightings of these creatures and stuff, and it's because they've lost a lot of habitat because of construction going on, these subdivisions going in, like you were talking about, and yeah, that's just why there's more sightings in these times than it has been, more than they ever have been.
Right. Hush. My bear dog there.
Yeah, you big dog. Yeah,
Yeah, Mr. Dollar. Or my Squatch pup.
yeah, you Squatch pup. There you go.
Yeah, he watches after me. We go on these camp outs. I take him with me. He watches camp for me while we're out doing a little
Yeah.
research. But no, these things, and I don't think, I don't feel that as far as sightings and encounters with these creatures, I don't think they're
Hmm.
going to stop.
No.
As we go farther into their territory, the more sightings we're going to have.
Uh,
Used to 40, 50 years ago, if you heard about somebody having a sighting of Bigfoot, it was while they were off way back in the mountains or whatever fishing.
hmm.
We were in the Sasquatch territory.
Yeah.
Now, for the last 15, 20 years, the biggest part of the sightings have been in rural areas where, and not just rural areas, but they've actually been sightings recorded in downtown Atlanta of these creatures. They've been
Hmm.
been sightings in Montgomery, Alabama of these creatures in the main part of town. Uh,
Yeah.
Areas like this, when these creatures, I feel that when these creatures, uh, I was reading what Chuck had wrote here, but now, uh, I think these creatures are actually being like the bear out in Yellowstone and stuff. I think that the more encounters that we have with these creatures, we as a human species have with these creatures, the more or the less afraid that they're actually going to become of us,
Yeah.
as a species.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's probably, honestly, that's probably not a good thing. It's probably not a real good thing at all.
It's like anything else. You take people in the Smokies feeding bear on the side of the road. Okay, what's that
Yeah.
animal going to do? You start feeding that bear, uh, and people stopping in certain areas and leaving, feeding them out of the cars and stuff. Uh, and that's going to be, that's the way it goes. Well, it's going to be the same way with Sasquatch over the years.
Yeah.
The farther we encroach into their areas, uh, and people leaving garbage out, people leaving food scraps out, whatever, these creatures are going to get used to it. And
Hmm.
if you stop doing it, then there is, in my feelings, that's where the trouble is going to start at. It's
Oh,
just like it's just like
absolutely.
right. It's just like feeding a stray dog. You get that dog used to come into your yard, and then you quit feeding it. Well, they gonna be one morning you're gonna walk out and that sucker's gonna bite you because you ain't
Yeah.
been feeding him. Well, that's the same
Hmm.
way Sasquatch is.
Absolutely.
So it's gonna be it's a twofold deal either way you go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But like I've told you before, I know they exist. I know they're real. And you know how it is. People, oh, you're interested in Sasquatch, ha ha ha. Kind of a laugh cat deal, and but a lot of people's not that way. They're like, oh, really? Well, I saw something, back in da 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 da, and so, but like I said, I don't care if people believe me or not. Um, I saw what I saw. I have no reason to make something up like that or lie about that. I know they're real, and like I said, I just curious about them and like to learn about them as much as I can, and no, I'm not really a researcher that goes out and does a lot of stuff. I've been on a few outings and stuff, and I like to go on some more. But I'm a fairly avid reader, and like to read books, on people's encounters. I don't too much read books that's written by someone that it's all of their opinions, and it's this, that, and the other that they think, you know, whatever Sasquatch is, will they do this, will they do that, and this kind of stuff. I'm more interested in people's one-on-one encounters. That's what interests
Yeah,
me.
exactly. Right.
And you can learn a lot for listening to these people. Because a lot of people's had more terrifying encounters than what I had, or an encounter that lasted longer, or they were watching one of these creatures from a distance, and watching what it was doing and this, that, and the other, just by reading those accounts and listening to those accounts, that's what interests me, and that's where I learned some stuff, and just like today, I got that Tom Cantrell's new book, Sasquatch to Proof, and I read a little bit on it, but I got some more books to read, so that's why I let you borrow that one, to read it. Keep it, like I told you, keep it as long as you want to. I know where you work. I can get it back, but
Well,
but
I'll finish
like
this one up in a day or two,
oh, like I
and bring
told
it
you,
back
like I
to you.
told you today, buddy, you keep that as long as you want to. It's all good.
But
But
it's what I try to learn when I go out and talk to someone, especially someone that's had a very recent encounter. I
mm-hmm,
try to find out all the particulars that I can find out, whether it was a daytime sighting, whether it was a
mm-hmm,
nighttime sighting, whether this creature had been seen in the area before. Uh,
mm-hmm.
you know, weather conditions play a lot in this. Whether it was
Oh
raining,
yeah.
whether it was sunshine, whether it was cold, whether it was hot
Mm-hmm,
weather. Uh, you know, summertime sightings where these creatures uh, have been seen crossing a road. Okay, were they coming out of a bedding area, for instance? Maybe
mm-hmm,
going down to a creek to water to feed. You know,
mm-hmm.
this is the general information that, as a researcher, you need to find out. You need to listen. You need to write it down. And as you talk to new people or different people about encounters, you can go back
Mm-hmm.
and pull these files that you've got, and you can match it up and see how close these encounters. Uh, how what's the word I'm trying to think of? How similar these encounters are. Uh,
Yeah.
and this is what makes researching so fun for me.
Oh yeah. 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 I'm looking forward. Like I said, I've only been to a couple outings, I guess you would say, but yeah, I know you've invited me to come along, with you and to go do some stuff, and I'm looking forward to getting out, and possibly having another encounter, or well, I'm just looking forward to it.
Well, I'm looking for the day that I have an encounter with one. Honest to God, boys, that and this may sound crazy, but I would like to see one of these creatures up close enough to where you could actually feel the hot breath off of them as they're standing there looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
This is my type of encounter that I would like to
Yeah.
actually be able to have with one of these creatures without getting killed or maimed, But
Oh yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
if you, I think if you ever have that close of an encounter with one, you're probably going to end up missing some body parts.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
All right, what is your thoughts on gifting as far as having a certain area that you would go to put food out or put
Mm,
gifts out for these creatures? Uh,
yeah.
and do you think that people need to do this near their homes?
Oh man. Yeah, doing it near the homes, I don't think it's a good idea. Which I mean, especially you giving these things food. I don't think that's a good idea because you stop giving them food, it's gonna tick them off. They're gonna like, well, where's my food? And especially if you're doing it close to your house, you know, they come to your house and cause all kind of trouble. You know, I know a lot of people do gifting stuff, and I'm kind of split on it. It's like I'm against giving them something to eat, food, time and time again. Just don't give them food. I wouldn't. But other things, gifting that way, uh, yeah, I think it's pretty, it's fine to do that. But it's just, when you're giving them food, I just do not think that's a good idea. Even giving them stuff like apples and stuff, leaving. I know people do it, that's their business. That's fine. I just think that especially if you're doing something like that on your own property, when you have these creatures that's on your own property and you're giving them something to eat, and all of a sudden you can't do that anymore, or heaven forbid you're bad sick and you're in the hospital for weeks or months or something like that. What's going to happen to the people that's there in your home? And they're not feeding these things. I don't think it's a good idea. That's just me personally, though, because I've heard some horror stories about people feeding these things, and then they're not able to feed them anymore, and then they get ticked off about it, and they start tearing up stuff and killing goats and killing dogs, killing this, that, and the other, and coming up to your house, looking in your windows and beating on the side of the house and throwing stuff at the house and just, becoming a menace. I just don't think it's a good idea to feed these things. I just don't.
Well, that's the same thing. That's my opinion on it.
Mm,
I don't think that if a man's got one of these things coming into an area around where you live, it's not a good idea to be feeding them that close to your
no.
homes. Uh, I've talked to people that have actually done this and said that it had evolved from just feeding them to these things actually coming up on their property, slapping their houses,
Mm,
looking in the windows at them. And I don't know what your feeling would be to that, but if I go to my living room window and look out at 10 o'clock at night and I've got a 8 foot hairy man standing there looking in the window at me, you know, uh, I'm not gonna like that.
oh no.
Uh, and that's what turns out to happen in these cases. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it will happen in every case, but 9 times out of 10, if you get to feeding one like you said and then stop whatever, you're just inviting trouble into your own property. Well, I have lost Mr. Shane. All right, buddy, what has happened? All right, folks, while I'm waiting on Mr. Shane to check back on here, I'd just like to say that I'd like to welcome everybody back aboard. I've had some health issues over the last few months. Also been working so much that I've not been able to really concentrate on what I needed to do with this channel. But we're back. Hopefully, I'm hoping that Blake will join me again this coming Wednesday night. Uh, we'll have a new one on Wednesday night. We're going to try to get back into our I think our Wednesday night routines. If not, we will be holding on Friday nights. But I hope everybody will join us and really help promote the channel. Okay, Chuck Turner says look up Russ Jones's interview. Look up Russ Jones's interview of Ronnie Powell if you want to know the horrors of them being near your house. And that's right, Chuck. I mean, honest to God, boys, if these creatures are like any other wild creatures, if you start feeding them on your property and getting them used to coming to your property for food, and then all of a sudden you stop, then yes, you're going to encounter some negative reaction out of these creatures. Uh, Mr. Chuck says, I look forward to you being back. Well, thank you very much, Chuck, and we're back, and hopefully we're going to be going strong. We got some new camp out there, some new areas to camp out and investigate. And we're hoping to start doing that within the next couple of weeks. I know it's cold weather, getting into the cold months of the year, but it seems to me that all the encounters that I've ever had with these creatures, I've had most of them in the winter months. So we're going to start kick off a new season for 2003 and see where it goes. Uh, I don't know what's happened to Mr. Shane. Uh, I guess his internet is out. So instead of me sitting here and rattling on, I just want to say that I'd like to welcome everybody back to the channel. We will be doing hopefully our regular Wednesday night routines. We'll also be doing them on Friday nights. Hope y'all guys will join in and help support us just by being here on the channel, by watching us going over the details that we share with you over the weeks ahead. Um, and just look forward to being here again. Thank everybody for the prayers. Thank everybody for the support that they've shown. Uh, and we really enjoy being with everyone. Thank everyone, and I'm going to sign off for the night, but we'll be back Wednesday night with a new show. They're going to be inviting new people onto the show. Anyone tuned in that would like to come on the show and share their encounters, hit me up. Northwest Georgia Cryptics. Here. Northwest Georgia Cryptics at gmail.com. You can contact me there and share your encounters with us, and we'll get you scheduled and get you on the show and let you tell your encounters. Everybody, good night and God bless. Shane, I don't know what happened, bud, but hopefully the next one will be better than this one. Talk to y'all later. Again, thanks for everybody watching. Uh, we really enjoyed it. Thank you.